I used to believe, like I think a lot of us are raised to believe, that the bond with your family is just unbreakable, that no matter what, that tie is supposed to hold. But then you get older and you start to see things differently. You start to wonder what happens when that bond doesn't feel like a lifeline anymore. What if it starts to feel more like a chain? It's happening everywhere, in quiet suburbs and busy cities, and it's still one of those things we barely talk about. Adult children who stop speaking to their parents, siblings who become strangers. They call it estrangement, and from the outside, I get why it looks like a tantrum or like someone's just being ungrateful, like they woke up one day and decided to burn it all down. But I don't think that's what it is. Scratch the surface, even a little, and you don't find a simple story of anger. You find something way more complicated. It's a journey of just trying to survive yourself. So why do people actually take this step? Is it a snap decision, or is it something that builds for years? In this video, I want to look at the psychology of walking away, the slow burn stuff that makes separation feel like the only option, the invisible family roles that trap us, and why no contact is often less about war and more about finally finding a little peace. If you've ever carried guilt about this, or you're trying to make sense of someone's silence, maybe stay with me. The thing is, estrangement is almost never a sudden explosion. It's an erosion. It happens so quietly you almost don't notice it while it's happening. For years, maybe decades, the family probably looks fine from the outside. There are birthday dinners, holiday photos with everyone smiling, but underneath something is just wearing down. And it's not one big thing, it's 1,000 tiny little cuts that just pile up. Psychologists have a term for it. They call it micro-trauma. It's the sarcastic joke that always seems to land wrong. It's the concern that feels an awful lot like criticism. It's a boundary you try to set and it gets nudged and then pushed and then just ignored completely. It's the constant unspoken message that your version of reality is wrong, that your feelings are an inconvenience, that who you actually are isn't quite acceptable. On its own, each moment is forgettable. You'd feel silly even bringing it up. But together they become the air you breathe. And eventually your body starts to get the message before your mind does. Your stomach knots up when you see their name on your phone. You find yourself mentally rehearsing conversations, trying to dodge landmines you just know are there. You make yourself smaller, quieter, just to keep the peace. What you once accepted as that's just how they are turns into this chronic low-grade anxiety that follows you everywhere. That's the erosion no one else sees. I don't think estrangement is born from a loss of love. I think it's born from a total depletion of strength. You just run out of hope that it'll ever be different. To someone on the outside, the actual decision to cut ties can look like it came out of nowhere, like someone just woke up angry. Parents are left bewildered, saying things like, "But we were always so close." Friends echo, "But they seemed fine at the barbecue." It's like an iceberg. The part you see above the water looks calm, still, but the mass hidden below, that's what does the damage. Estrangement works the same way. That final text message, the blow up at Thanksgiving, the one insensitive comment, that's never the real cause. It's just the pressure valve finally bursting after years of silent accumulation. To the family member, it feels like you're ending this over one argument, but to the person walking away, it's just the final answer to a question they've asked themselves 1,000 times. When will enough finally be enough? The break only looks sudden because the suffering was invisible. Long before someone leaves, they've often been cast in a play they never auditioned for. In families that aren't functioning well, your identity isn't really discovered, it's assigned. And these roles shape everything. There's the hero, the one who props up the family image, achieving and performing to prove everything is fine. Then there's the scapegoat, the one who gets blamed for the tension everyone else is causing. It's ironic, but the scapegoat is often the most emotionally honest person in the room. They're the first to be exiled when they stop absorbing the family's shame. There's the lost child, the one who learns to disappear, to ask for nothing, to be invisible because visibility feels dangerous. They grow up to be self-sufficient adults who secretly wonder if they're even allowed to take up space. And then there's the heaviest one, the parentified child, the one who becomes the mediator, the therapist, the emotional caregiver for their own parents. They learn to carry burdens that would crush most adults while they're still just children themselves. They grow up believing love is a transaction, that you have to earn your place through service and silence. None of these roles leave room for a real self to grow. You build a personality around obligation and hiding, and when someone finally tries to step out of their part, when they try to become a whole person instead of a function, the family system reacts, it resists, it blames, it shames. Because in these dynamics, reclaiming your own life can feel like the ultimate betrayal. Some wounds bleed, but the ones that don't, I think those are often the ones that shape us most. Emotional neglect is silent. It leaves no visible marks, no clear incidents you can point to and say that's what happened. It's defined by an absence, the comfort that never arrived, the protection that wasn't there, the curiosity about your inner world that no one ever showed. Growing up without that emotional attunement teaches you a devastating lesson, that your feelings are either a burden or completely irrelevant. As adults, these individuals often look strong, independent, unbothered, all while carrying this quiet ache that never fully heals. I think of it like an empty well. You keep going back to your family hoping this time you'll find something to drink. Maybe this time they'll ask how you're really doing. Maybe this time they'll see you. But every visit ends the same, with a dry bucket and that familiar hollow ache in your chest. Most people don't leave because of what their parents did. They leave because of what their parents could never give. Because returning to an empty well over and over, eventually that becomes a form of self-abandonment. Estrangement isn't about rejecting family. It's about finally choosing to stop thirsting for a love that was never really there. If the decision to leave can seem sudden, the decision to stay is even harder to understand. Why do people endure decades of pain before finally stepping away? I think two powerful forces are at play. One is the trauma bond, and the other is the cycle of hope. A trauma bond forms when hurt and warmth get twisted together. A cruel comment followed by a loving gesture, a week of cold silence, then a sudden apology, a boundary stomped on followed by a promise to change. Your nervous system gets hooked on the inconsistency. It confuses it with love. You start to believe that if you can just be better, quieter, more understanding, you'll finally unlock the loving parent you always needed. That's the hope cycle. It's what keeps you waiting, keeps you forgiving, keeps you going back to a place that slowly dismantles your sense of self. Hope isn't the enemy. The enemy is that the hope is always pinned on who they could be, not on who they consistently are. So you endure, you shrink, you rationalize, you wait for the breakthrough that never comes. When someone finally walks, it's not because the love died, it's because they finally accepted the cycle wasn't going to change, and staying meant losing themselves 1 year at a time. I've heard it described as a quiet, devastating realization. If I stay, I will disappear. When people hear no contact, they tend to picture a dramatic, angry shutdown, an act of revenge. But in my experience, distance is almost never about punishment. It's a survival strategy. And it takes different forms. Some choose low contact, shorter calls, fewer visits, conversations that stay on the surface. It's a way of saying, I still care, but I can't let you into my inner world anymore. It's the first attempt to reshape the dynamic without ending it. Others use what's called the gray rock method. They become as uninteresting and unresponsive as a rock. They share nothing, react to nothing, because any emotional reaction is just fuel for the old patterns. Gray rock isn't coldness, it's protection. And when even that fails, some choose no contact, not out of hate, but because every other boundary was ignored. It becomes the final tool, the last available way to stop the cycle, reclaim your mind, and rebuild your identity. Psychologically, that choice activates a storm, grief, relief, guilt, all at once. You mourn the parent you hoped for, feel guilty for wanting peace, and breathe easier when the chaos finally stops. It's a deeply conflicted decision, made only after every other attempt has failed. Distance isn't rejection, it's clarity. It's the moment you say, I can't change you, but I can protect myself. When someone chooses distance, the world often assumes the hardest part is the separation itself. But the deeper pain, the one no one talks about, is the grief that follows. There's a term for it, ambiguous loss. It's the unique mourning you feel when the person you've lost is still alive. They're still breathing, still posting holiday photos, but they're emotionally unreachable. There's no funeral, no closure, no ritual to help you move on. Just a lingering ache, a question mark where clarity should be. You're grieving not just the relationship you had, but the one you never got to have. The parent who could have protected you, understood you, loved you unconditionally. Letting go of that imagined parent can feel like losing them twice. Then come the holidays, the empty seat at the table, the silent phone. The rest of the world seems wrapped in warmth while you're navigating this invisible grief that no one really knows how to comfort. And yet, even in the grief, there is relief. The anxiety fades. Your nervous system finally exhales. But that relief often comes with guilt, as if choosing peace makes you disloyal,